She has a certain appeal, I suppose, but is she really your type? James Moriarty peered over his friend's shoulder at a poster on the wall beside the Empire Theatre of Varieties on Shoreditch High Street. The yard-high poster displayed a young woman garbed in layers of filmy gauze coloured red, gold and white. She raised her arms and lifted one foot in the dance of the 7 veils, according to the billing. Her costume spoke of the Orient, but her peaches and cream complexion betrayed her English origins. Gabriel Sandy shot him a wry grin. She might be, if she were the real thing, but she's a former farm girl from Yorkshire. Evidently. Moriarty chuckled. That's why I asked. You seemed especially interested. Sandy's grin faded as he shook his head. No, not really. She just reminds me of something. He turned away before adding under his breath, something that doesn't matter anymore. Moriarty let it go, though one didn't need the interpretive skill of a confidence trickster to see that whatever it was mattered a great deal. He wouldn't pry, though he did wish his friend had someone to come home to after a long night of work, someone other than the Cockney urchin he'd informally adopted. The Moriartys had celebrated their 3rd anniversary in May. They'd had their ups and downs, but he wouldn't trade the conjugal life for anything. Sandy was 34 and had a thriving trade driving a hansom cab in the theatre district. He wasn't precisely handsome, but his wide smile, ginger hair and abundant freckles gave him a friendly look. He had a sound intellect, an even temper, and a warm heart. He'd make some lucky woman an excellent husband. However, no bachelor liked to be nagged on that tender subject. Where is this flat you found? 1 more street, then we turn to the right. It isn't far. All the streets looked the same to Moriarty. Stark grey facades, fronting dirty grey pavements. Even the music hall presented a bare stone front, unlike the ornate Roman stylings of the West End theatres. The people in the East End looked greyer too. No fashionable peacocks here, strutting and strolling in the latest styles. These people hunched their shoulders into shabby overcoats and hurried along their way. Moriarty had seldom set foot in this half of the city, though his wife had grown up here. Her father had moved her and her twin siblings from one cheap hotel to another, evading creditors while sticking close to the variety halls where the children earned their living. Angelina had shown no interest in sharing her past with her husband beyond the bare facts. He respected her choice, but couldn't help being a little curious. Sandy knew the district well enough to drive it in his sleep by this time, at least the major arteries and larger side streets. He and his assistant, Zeke, lived above the stable where he kept his horses and cab. The current desire to move had been prompted by a rise in rent, despite the landlord's refusal to repair a leaky roof and a broken window sash. Enough was enough. They reached the target street and turned onto it, steering around a puddle left by yesterday's torrential downpour. Today the sun was out, lifting wisps of steam from the wet streets. Moriarty was glad he'd left his coat at home. It was already warm enough to dampen the brow under his short topper. Ah, there's a sad sight. Sandy pointed his chin at a man in a tattered red army jacket sitting cross-legged on a patch of newspapers. He slumped against the wall in a dejected posture that spoke of hard years and bad luck. A shapeless hat lay upturned before him. This side street seemed a poor choice for begging, but perhaps the police had driven him off the high street. Sandy reached into his pocket for a few coins. Moriarty did the same. They each bent down to drop them into the hat. "Where do you serve, soldier?" Sandy asked. The man looked up at him with a queer gleam in his brown eyes. Then 2 other men in red jackets appeared in a rush of movement. One grabbed Moriarty, turning him around and gripping his arms behind his back. "Give me your money," the man growled. "You more than a few pence in those fine pockets, I'll wager." Sandy dodged his assailant with a quick twist. He aimed a square fist at the man's bearded jaw, then froze as his mouth dropped open.